Hi everyone. This book review is going to be about a book that was published last year, but I'm just reading it now, and it is called The Blood of Emmett Till by Timothy B. Tyson. This is Timothy B. Tyson. It says that he is a senior research scholar at the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke University, visiting professor of American Christianity and Southern Culture at Duke Divinity School, and the adjunct professor of American Studies at the University of North Carolina. He serves on the executive boards of the North Carolina NAACP and the UNC Center for Civil Rights. So that is the author who has read and studied specifically about the civil rights movement. He's also written 2 books about Black history. So the reason I chose this book is because I am obsessed with the Emmett Till case. When I was 14 years old, I found out about the Emmett Till story. Emmett Till was 14 when he was lynched. I'm an only child. Emmett Till is an only child, so I felt this connection to the story. So far, I have read his mother's book. I have read The Lynching of Emmett Till, a documentary narrative. I have memorized A Wreath for Emmett Till by Marilyn Nelson, and that's a children's book. I've seen a documentary about him by Keith Beauchamp. I saw a play called The Face of Emmett Till, and I'm always reading articles and different things about the case. So this book really stood out to me because this was the first book that interviewed Carolyn Bryant that I know of. And what was interesting was how I reacted to the book. Because even though I have read about the case like a billion times, for some reason, the way the author wrote it made me angry all over again. And when I say angry, I'm talking about my blood pressure, temperature going up. I was mad for days. I was just so angry. So, the way the author writes is kind of story-like, but I can't... I don't know how to really describe it, like something Southern style, like a Southern flavor storytelling. And the part that really stood out to me was him speaking to Carolyn Bryant, because I had this image or this idea of Carolyn Bryant in my mind already. So the author made her more human to me. I don't know if she's spoken in any other books, as I said, but what kind of made me suspicious of the author was I think she sought him out, or she wanted him to interview her. And I already have a distrust of people writing about another person's culture that isn't from that culture, because it could either be objective or it could be very racist. And I've already encountered 1 or 2 authors where we got into a verbal argument about how they wrote Black history, because one author just went all the way racist with her story, okay? But this guy, he stays on the path, mostly. He's very objective, he just gives you the facts. So the first thing I want to discuss is Carolyn Bryant, okay, since we're on that topic. My perspective before I read this book on Carolyn Bryant was that she was just some snotty 21-year-old who looked decades older and was just a complete witch who was a liar and caused Emmett Till's death and needed to be burning in hell or in prison since she committed perjury on the stand. But this author kind of altered my perspective a little bit. I still think she needs to go to prison because she did commit perjury. In fact, in the book, she talks about, what was it? Nothing that boy did. No. The older woman sipped her coffee. I have thought and thought about everything about Emmett Till, the killing and the trial, telling who did what to who. they're all dead anyway. She's talking about the people that were involved. And she's like, nothing that boy did made him deserve what he got, basically. Talking about Emmett Till. So I'm like, okay. And throughout the story, she says certain bits and pieces. Some kind of like really irritated me and made me just hate her all over again. And other parts, I'm like, oh, that I can kind of see where you're coming from. Or like, okay. So she did not have a very good relationship with her husband's brother. Now, there were 2 lynchers that we know were involved. It was her husband, Roy Bryant, and her brother-in-law, J.W. Milam. Now, the perspective I'm getting from the book is that Carolyn Bryant's husband and his family were from a completely different class than Carolyn Bryant. So she seemed like maybe 1, 2, 3 degrees above them, and they were just basically trailer trash. Trailer trash. And I say this because I didn't live in a trailer. Just because you live in a trailer, you're not trash. But hillbilly, gun-toting, wild, wild west type of people that kind of reminded me of my neighbors from St. Charles. Anyway, so she didn't like her husband's brother very much, his half-brother. His half-brother seemed to be much more violent than her actual husband. So I feel that if Emmett Till had encountered Roy Bryant and there was no Milam involved, I personally believe he would have only gotten like seriously beat up and been in a bad state, but he wouldn't be dead. Whereas Milam, he's just very violent. They came basically from a violent family. Carolyn Bryant was like a debutante. Beauty queen. Lived a simple life. She probably would have had a better life if she just married some regular dude. But I really think the lynching was instigated by her brother-in-law. Then she mentions a time where her brother-in-law, Milam, voted for her. It was her first time, I guess, voting. And she was still angry to this day about him casting her vote. He's like, oh, I already voted for you. And she's like, he already voted for me. So I feel like there was some tension between her and him. I believe she just wanted to be married, raise her kids, and be cute. And that's about it. She just wanted a regular life. I personally believe that she didn't think that the Emmett Till thing would go this far. That's why she didn't say much about it. I guess she thought, oh, well, I'll just forget about it and my husband won't hear and his brother won't hear and that'll just be over and done with. It's over. But it kind of blew up out of control. So one thing she said in the book was she mentioned that the thing she said on the stand, she's like, well, that part wasn't true. I'm like, that part wasn't true. Lady, you committed freaking perjury. You need to be in prison right now. You committed perjury. And yet here you are sitting free. Other quotes that the author wrote about her, she talks about Emmett Till's mother. And she said, I don't know how she could stand that trial. Here's this woman whose child has just been brutalized, utterly brutalized. How could she stand it? I'm like, what? How could she stand it? What do you mean, how could she stand it? Because you know when you hear somebody say something, you have to hear the tone of their voice. So it could have been, oh, there's this woman and her child's been murdered and I'm a mother too and I don't know how I would be able to handle my child being killed, and how could she stand it without a nervous breakdown? That's one perspective. The other perspective is, how could she stand it? Like trying to test her fortitude and stuff. She seemed kind of self-absorbed as well, because in the chapter 15, she's saying, I had all these things running through my mind. My husband's going to the penitentiary, maybe for life. I have children to support. I'm like, first off, nobody cares about your children. Your children are alive. Mamie's child, Miss Bradley's child, is at the bottom of the Tallahatchie River, barbed wire to a gin van, or a cotton gin van. But here you are, your children are alive and healthy, still breathing. But you're worried about your husband going to the penitentiary. Maybe your husband should have stayed in his lane, lady. Like I said, the more I read this book, the angrier I got. And I know I've read this story a million times before, but it was just so much bullcrap. So much bullcrap that I didn't see as a child that I can see now. Like, how are you going to call Emmett Till's mother by her first name and his uncle on the stand like they're a freaking child? No, you call her Miss Bradley. You call him Mr. Wright. You show some respect. But no, they didn't show any respect, because they didn't think that this case was going to be bigger than the town. So Milam's thinking he can just do anything. He can just do anything and get away with it. Oh, I can just do anything. I can lynch a black person. Nobody cares. It's just a black person. Which I will get to that topic later too. Later in the video, so I can stay on this freaking book. So the author puts the Emmett Till case in perspective to the whole civil rights movement. He talks about the people that were lynched before Emmett Till came. He's talking about all of the intensity that was going on in that area that Emmett Till was about to go in that state and around the country as a result of the Brown versus the Board of Education decision. There were so many people pissed off about that decision. And if you read some of the writings about the ones that were pissed off, they just sound like idiots. Like, okay, so you just sound dumb as hell. Like, oh no, if your child is in class with my child, then my child will just be raped or something. Or no, that's going to start some interracial relationships, and then you'll have biracial. So, okay, like there weren't any biracial children before. And most of the biracial children came from the racist people, like during enslavement. So you're going to be mad at the black man for raping the white woman, but you can come to his cabin and take his woman and have all these biracial children, but you don't have a problem with that. But we're 13 was 1/3 of a person. Yeah, you can rape us. Okay. Just this whole double standard I saw in this book was absolutely ridiculous. Especially the court, the trial. It was just ridiculous. Ridiculous. He talks about how Emmett Till was killed. One of the things that I have been curious about are the black people involved in his lynching. Because I had heard about it, but I didn't know their names or anything like that. So he details kind of about that. And that was pretty interesting. He talks about how the case became international. Because as I said, they believed that this case was going to just stay in town. He talks about different people that play different roles in the whole lynching and case and all of that I had never heard about. I had read their names, but I didn't know their personal history. So the author did a very good job of just fleshing out the people that were either involved in the case, or the lawyers and the jury and all of that stuff. He did a very excellent job with that. So it was almost like watching a movie on the page. It was like, wow, really? Okay. Oh my god. Okay. So now I'm just going to go into my whole personal thing in relation to the case. So you know how I said earlier, they didn't think anybody would care. They didn't think anybody would care. And that's something that's going on to this day in regards to black children and black men and all of that. They didn't think anybody was going to care about Emmett Till and his lynching. Oh, it's just another black person at the bottom of the river. So, like, what is a 14-year-old being lynched gonna do? I mean, Mary Turner was lynched, and she was 8 months pregnant, and they sliced open her child with a hunting knife, riddled her with bullets, set her on fire. The baby fetus fell out. They stomped on the fetus. I guess set the fetus on fire too. So if you're gonna do that to an unborn baby, what is a 14-year-old child to you? And the reason that people didn't care was, I guess, they just didn't see the black child as a child. Because Emmett Till's lynchers should have gone to prison anyway. You kidnapped a child. You were breaking and entering into a home at gunpoint, like threatening somebody with a weapon, assaulting a child, hiding a body, lying on the stand. The list could go on and on and on. But here you are, sitting free. Then you lied to Look magazine. You get paid to lie now. That part really pissed me off, for real. Like, you get paid to lie in a magazine for the world to see. Just like how here, because I'm in St. Louis, and this case reminds me of like what happened in Ferguson, where I grew up. I grew up in Ferguson. I spent like almost my whole childhood there, not too far from where Michael Brown was lynched. It was only like maybe like 1 or 2 blocks, and then you turn. But yeah, they didn't see Emmett Till as an actual child. In fact, they tried to paint him as a rapist, a beast. They did the same to his father. Tried to sexualize him. Just how Darren Wilson was talking about Michael Brown, saying that, oh, it was like the Incredible Hulk. I'm like, oh, okay. So you're just shooting at him and he's still running at you? Like, what the heck? You try to make yourself seem like you're in danger when you're not in any danger? Or you try to make the child seem like they're some otherworldly creature so that you can justify murdering the child. Did that with Tamir Rice. They did that with Trayvon Martin. The newspapers tried to make Emmett Till seem like he was just some sexual beast. You could look in his face and see he was a little baby face. And first off, he had a stuttering problem. His mother told him, whistle to get the words out. Because he had a stuttering problem from polio as a child. And I'm getting very emotional about this because I have worked with children of all races, but mainly black children and poor children, or from different classes, for over 13 years. I did it for 13 years. And I've just seen how the child has been demonized, the black child. I've seen how the child has been sexualized. And I'm going to tell you some examples. So, there was an after-school program I worked for. And they assumed that since the children were black and poor, that they just knew all about drugs. And these were like 6, 7-year-olds. This was back in 2011. They're like, oh, when your parents come in and they're acting like this and they're calling this that and they have this white powder on their face. I'm like, number one, why are you assuming that their parents are doing drugs? You don't know these children's parents. Then you're teaching them, you're showing them what the drug looks like. You're teaching them all of the slang terms for the drugs. They're 6 years old. Why don't you just tell them, don't do drugs. Don't take candy from strangers like you do some other 6-year-olds. But no, since they're little black children, oh, they can handle it. I've seen people not curse in front of one group of children, but curse in front of black children that they wouldn't have done with any other group of children. Me and this lady, this white lady who was, I think she was Jewish, we almost collaborated. Almost. After one meeting, I'm like, I'm not doing anything with this lady. We were supposed to be doing a workshop for black teenagers, and it was going to be a bookmaking workshop. So I was going to be conducting the writing, and she was going to be conducting the bookmaking. And I guess since she assumed that the black children were from a poor neighborhood, they had a whole different mindset. So I said, oh yeah, they could be creative, make their own superhero story and stuff like that. And she's like, I don't want them to write all just fairy tales. Like, I want them to write about the violence, the real things that are going on in their life, the drugs. I'm like, wait, hold up, what? You just gonna make the assumption that since this child is from this neighborhood, they're all on drugs and they're all doing this and they're all doing that? Another example was back in 2007. There was a program at a library in a predominantly black neighborhood, and there were young children. It was a whole poetry thing. So this older white guy comes up and he starts saying a poem, and then he's like talking about masturbation and stuff in front of like 5-6-year-olds. What gives you the right to come to a public library in a poetry group for children and talk about all of these sexual things that these children probably never heard of before? I was, 18? It was 2007. I was probably 18. I was like masturbate, because I wasn't exposed to that world either. So that's why when you see today, if you don't understand why people are treating black children the way they're treating black children, is because they don't see the black child as a black child. That is why Emmett Till's mother, she knew this. That's why she worked so hard to make her son's issue a national, global issue. That's why she had the open casket, so people could see the face of lynching. Because there were lynchings before, but nobody ever had an open casket where you saw the torture that had happened to an innocent child. Because she made it into a big deal. They didn't think it was a big deal, but she made it into a big deal. All it takes is one person to care, just like Ferguson. Personally, when Ferguson happened, I didn't know it was going to be as big as it was, for real, personally, honestly. Because in 2006, Jeremy Robinson, he got murdered by a cop. He was 15 years old. And nobody really did anything except a small group of people. It was overshadowed when they found Sean Hornbeck and Ben Omby, who were missing children. But nobody really thought Ferguson was going to be as big as it was. It became a global issue. But the reason it became as big as it was because somebody cared. That's the only reason we know about. The only reason we know about the Emmett Till case was because it was a mother's love. His mother cared. His mother cared. You just can't, when somebody doesn't care, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at you. When somebody doesn't care, they can do anything to you. It doesn't matter who you are. If a society stops caring about the worth of a human being, anything could happen. That's why black people have to be careful. Even my most recent experience, yesterday, my boyfriend almost got shot. Yes, he did. He almost got shot with some other black people. They were working, trying to sign up people to vote. They were, I guess, in the wrong part of Missouri, or the wrong part of the city. Because this was out in the country. It wasn't a lot of black people. I guess it was an all-white neighborhood, I don't know. And some of the white people were like, hey, maybe you should, like, this isn't, like, maybe you should leave soon, or, yeah, like, this area is kind of strange. I'd suggest you, like, leave soon. And they didn't understand what was going on. Then all of a sudden, like, I guess it was, I don't know if it was one white guy or a couple white guys, just start shooting at him. Just start shooting. And then they escaped out of the whole neighborhood. If you get to a point where you can just start shooting at people and know that you're not going to be punished for it, that is a scary, scary day in history. That is a scary day for society. Because if it happens to them, it can happen to you. That's why we have to care for each other. If you see an injustice, don't let it just pass you by blindly. Say something. Do something. Because it'll only stop if you stop it. You are your community. So that is all I have to say about this. I will be doing another book review very soon. I just gotta pick a book. So thank you for watching this video. And remember, read this book, The Blood of Emmett Till. Bye-bye.